The room's dark. It's dark out. Hello, I'm dark.
Welcome to Movie News November, apparently, as there is yet another big dose of movie news coming from Netflix once again at the same time as their reveal for Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is Orion and the Dark, the next new, fully animated, full feature-length production by DreamWorks. This is the next DreamWorks movie. And it's not based on another franchise that DreamWorks has already made. It's not a sequel, it's not a reboot, it's not a redo. It's not entirely an original story, but it is a little bit of a breath of fresh air considering the industry we're in at the moment. You know, same day as Avatar. Now, Orion and the Dark is actually based off of a very classic child storybook. Created by Emma Yarlett, it is a very simplistic, literally baby book you can go through. It's about 10, maybe 15 pages long, about the dark manifest, the very embodiment of the fear of shadows and the dark that are common for most children, coming to life and taking away this one child to remove their fears of everything that they have. All done in one single night. With Orion here being an elementary school kid who's very shy, unassuming, and harboring a secret crush. However, under the surface, they are completely consumed by every irrational fear under the sun. Well, they say irrational, and some of them are, but the list that they give us, I wouldn't really dictate are entirely irrational. Apparently they have a fear of bees, dogs, the ocean, cell phone waves, murderous gutter clowns, falling off of a cliff, heights, girls letting the team down, giving the wrong answer in class, the bully that's going on in school, bungee jumping, and some sort of robots/aliens.
I'm gonna get you to overcome your fears if it kills me. And I'm immortal, by the way.
Now sure, maybe cell phone waves I can understand is a little bit irrational, or he's just very early in his age for his conspiratory traits later on in life. But a lot of these have some genuine horrors to them. The ocean's pretty deep. Bees can kill you if you're allergic, and bullying is a bit more of a nuanced topic than just don't be afraid of them and it'll be okay. But sure, yeah, whatever, you get it. Very much based around the idea of children's fears, this is a very good jumping point to go off from. I mean, the child's book's already highly esteemed and well praised as being an excellent thing for the elementary school reading level. So of course the story's going to be pretty good on that sense, but also early Pixar movies were very much based on a lot of classic children problems. Monsters Inc. was born out of the fear of monsters in the closet or under your bed. Toy Story was the imagination of what do your toys do when the kid's out of the room. It makes a lot of sense to make more of a fear-based children's movie. But against all this long list of irrational fears that they supposedly have, the one that they fear the most, that renders them nearly catatonic, according to the synopses I see, is the Dark. Popping in physical form like some sort of ghost in A Christmas Carol. In the books, they actually looked more like galaxies entirely, as in they are the night sky. But in this, they're just a looming dark shadow of nothingness. Nice. And with Orion being taken away by the Dark to go on their self-identification night journey, the Dark will end up being the good guy, and ironically enough, Light will end up being the bad guy. You can also catch some extra details going on in the background of this trailer, as clearly DreamWorks have had to expand on the usual 15 pages of almost no content. So you've got references like the electromagnetic spectrum being learnt in the background, which obviously fits to the idea of light and dark. You've got the animal representative for the school being the tortoises, and I don't know where that connects, but I guess somewhere it does, as well as learning about imperial colonialism in class. Lovely. Add that to your fears as well. We can also see in the classroom that one of the kids at the desk is in a wheelchair, so there's going to be some nice little representative details in the background, which is beautiful. Now, as the Dark shoves Orion off into the night sky, looking like Ralph in Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, which I guess makes sense because it's kind of the same studio, we'll then come to meet all sorts of other night entities and confronting Orion's fears right up front. But first, let me tell you some of the production details going on behind this movie.
Allow me to introduce the other night entities.
There's more?
As after all, the director for this movie is none other than Sean Charmatz. Now, this guy is making his feature directorial debut for this movie, but he's been around for a good chunk of things in the past, typically being the storyboard artist or the head of story for certain movies. Being head of story for the Angry Birds movie 2, and then the storyboard artist for all kinds of things. Trolls 2, Trolls 1, Angry Birds 1, Lego Movie 2, How to Train Your Dragon 3, Penguins of Madagascar, even the classic SpongeBob TV series from 2006 onwards, they were there for that. So, very much a new guy given a new opportunity, kind of similar to Inside Out. Now, from the writing front, we have Charlie Kaufman, who I do not recognize from any of the things that IMDb says that they're known for, but alongside them, they also have Lloyd Taylor, who is also known for Nimona and Spies in Disguise, so very much a Blue Sky Studios guy, and quite fitting for this project, I'd say. They're also known for writing Drawn Closer, which is a little short that was made. And of course, they will be writing additions from the core original author, Emma Yarlett. Now, while I tried to do some extra research into the original children's book to see if they could directly tell us what other characters are meant to make an appearance, I then would see that there's only 10 to 15 pages, and a lot of this is more original content being made by DreamWorks to expand out the universe. So we see a collection of other night entities, but you kind of have to fill the gaps to work out what they are. But from what I can tell, it seems to be that for a start, you have the night entity of sleep, being like a plushy rabbit of some sort, just a calm little bunny with a sleeper's hat. When you first see them at the poker table, there they are, fast asleep. So they could potentially represent sleep. On another front, you then have time, since this guy has numbers for eyes, much like a clock, and the numbers of keeping time to some sort, since time obviously passes at nighttime, or maybe it's like an alarm clock waiting by your bedside table. But similarly, I think there's another guy that represents alarms. Welcome to the halfway part of this video. If you haven't already, come subscribe, as we're covering all sorts of movie news this November. And when there isn't an announcement literally the day of uploading this, or the day before, I also do things like cancelled movie production details, terrible movies, video essays, if I ever get around to finding time to do that in this current landscape, all sorts of things. So come join along if you're interested. As this guy has a bell for a head and some kind of cassette tape in his chest. Is it like the embodiment of voicemail? I think it's kind of like one's a clock and one's an alarm, and they haven't yet invented alarm clocks. What do I know? But then potentially most interesting at this poker table scene is Galaxy, the embodiment of space and the night sky themselves, which is more akin to the original Child's book and the representation of dark there. We also then quickly see a little extract of a little mouse entity, likely being the element of creatures and bugs that come out at night, or the scuttling of mouse noises in the middle of the night that scare people. I don't know. It's an interesting new direction to creating new characters out of something. You know, after you've already got the different Santa Clauses or the mythological creatures around Arthur Christmas or emotions and all that good stuff, to do night entities is a very interesting spin.
Think you can fix everything I'm afraid of in one night?
One night can change everything.
Now, on the voice cast, there are apparently 3 people that have already been announced for this movie, the third of which doesn't actually have a character associated with them, and also are not very typically an actor. They're more so the director and the writer for these things, but Werner Herzog is involved in here somewhere, which is interesting. But up front and center for Orion, we have Jacob Tremblay. Now, this guy is Flounder in the new Little Mermaid remake, as well as Luca in Luca, the classic young boy protagonist of this day and age. And then as Dark, we have Paul Walter Hauser, who's been in a handful of things, but the one I would recognize him from is Horace from Cruella. Now, this movie was initially announced back in June of 2012, this year, debuting several segments at the Annecy International Film Festival. This is where the first 3 voice casts were plugged in, and I'd love to use the voice cast as an excuse to find out what the other night entities are, but that hasn't been actually shown in any articles yet. Seeming to be a child-friendly version of A Christmas Carol and handling fears, this is a very nice stepping point to jump off of and make a nice little project. However, there is a little bit of a red flag attached to this movie. This is being done by DreamWorks. Lovely, right? In fact, we even know specifically that this is being done by Micros Animation, the same people behind Captain Underpants, the first epic movie. So very much just a department of DreamWorks off to the side, being produced from Paris and Bangalore. But, as I said at the very beginning, this was announced via Netflix at their Geeked Week upload Nintendo Direct thing that they do. Netflix, obviously, is a streaming service. This movie is not getting a theatrical release. Much like Disney Plus just absorbs Pixar movies and they have a bit of a flop compared to the good old days, this is a Netflix movie being done by DreamWorks and then just coming out there. And that is a bit of a shame. This seems like a pretty decent story to start off from. Sure, it's based on a kiddly child's book, but I think it's got some interesting messages and a nice presentation that it could tell. Going right to the core of tackling kids' fears is really lovely, and it's not going to be as successful as it could be with a big name like DreamWorks and a shackling chain like Netflix as your distributor. Now, this movie feels akin more to Ron's Gone Wrong, which I only really combine because the aesthetics are similar, but also, that was that studio's very first ever movie, and I feel like it will be about as impactful as that. Resetting the success of a brand like DreamWorks, because it's a Netflix movie. Similarly, when actually listening to some of the clips from this trailer, I like the premise. I'm not a big fan of the jokes. It could just be because I'm getting so old, or maybe it's just the fact that maybe these stories are getting more and more easy and repetitive. The gags of this movie have all been done before. There's a part where Dark drops Orion.
On! See how much better that is, kid?
That's been done before. Similarly, in that same trailer, they then show him being rescued. All right, there goes the tension there. And then there's also the final line of, if you're into that kind of thing.
I'm wrapped in a warm blanket. You know, if you're into that kind of thing.
It's a joke that's been done many times before. It works because it's a kid's movie, so it will be the kids' first exposure to this joke, but I still like original story writing, you know? What's the point being a kids' movie writer if you're just gonna write what was made 10, 15 years ago, and 3 years ago, and 5 years ago, and 19 years ago, and 7 years ago? You know, they keep repeating the same jokes every year, it feels like. It's just a standard classic bit to pass the time. Still, despite all my grumbles, it's clear that there's a nice barrage of fears that are gonna be acknowledged, fears that are gonna be confronted, and fears that are gonna be solved by the end of a single night for Orion. Now, this movie releases soon. It comes out February 2nd, 2024. Where do you know? Over on Netflix. It sounds great. It's got a great foundation. I love the original, well, I don't love the original children's book. I haven't really read it and I didn't grow up with it, but you know, good start. Great. Jumping off point, brilliant. Nice and original story writing to adapt into a movie. If only maybe the more modernities of this movie, where it came from and how it's being written, maybe make it fall a little to the wayside. But at least it's a fun extension for what is otherwise a very small, simple project. I guess we'll just have to see if this kind of movie makes any kind of impact at all. At the very least, it's brand new news from DreamWorks, because the month of November is full of movie news. For now though, I'll be ending it off here. My name's been Daz. You didn't really care. Let me know your thoughts on this kind of movie. Do you care? Is it just like a, oh cool, fun side project by DreamWorks? Whatever. I'd be very genuinely curious to know, because I love the DreamWorks label, and I'm underwhelmed by this movie in its final presentation. But it should be fun to watch. We'll see. And on that note, I'll see you in a little bit.